Hi, I'm Barb, Maple PhD, and at the end of August, beginning of September, I got to go to the Dice Tower retreat where my spouse and I tried 27 new to us games. So I thought I would do a quick recap of all of those games, hopefully keeping it relatively short, but we'll see how well I do at that. I'm going to try and give just a couple of sentences about the theme and mechanisms and then kind of quick impressions of the game. I'm going to do these in alphabetical order, so here we go. Starting out, the first game is Ancient Knowledge. Now this was a card-driven game where you are building up a society and watching it age over time. One of the cool things about the game is as you played out cards that represented different monuments and things in these societies, you would put knowledge tokens on them. And the goal was to get those off of the cards before that monument decayed. Because at the end of each round, you're moving the cards down, and when they kind of get to the end of your board, they're falling off into the ancient past? I don't know. But if they do that and they still have knowledge on it, that goes on your board and counts against you at the end of the game. So we really enjoyed this. We only got to play it once. That's going to be true of almost every game on this list. But I really enjoyed kind of that mechanism. I think I'd need to play a few more times to figure out kind of the right strategy for this. I had a great way to get rid of all of the knowledge off of my cards, where my spouse ended up collecting all of his. I don't know if it was by accident or if he had a card that was going to help mitigate that, but we had fun with this one. So next up is the Art Project. This is a cooperative game where the players are trying to break up this syndicate of art heists by retrieving different pieces of art from them. We played kind of the base scenario on the Japan map that they suggest. And at the beginning of each round, the bad stuff that happens is a little bit controlled by the players, which was an interesting mechanism because you get two different cards and you choose one of them to play, but there's a cost to it. You know where the baddies are going to go out on the board, and that can kind of help you understand if the board's going to blow up or where that's going to happen and try and mitigate that. Maybe you're close enough to it that you can get rid of them by the end of the round, and if you can't, then it's kind of bad. You shut down a city completely and you can't go through it. We ended up winning this scenario just barely because I think we were going to lose on the very next turn, but we had a lot of fun with it. Next up was the Art Society, not to be confused with the Art Project. In Art Society, you are trying to lay out a wall of pictures. One of those walls that is just way too stuffed with pictures to really even look at any single one of them. The goal is to get kind of to the corners of your board and to fill it up as much as possible, while at the same time getting pictures right in your eye line. What I liked about this game is it's an auction game, which I'm not always the hugest fan of, but this one worked really well because each player has 20 different paddles that they're going to play in front of them, numbered 1 to 20. And so you're going to decide how badly you want to get to pick your piece of art first and play down, the lowest numbered paddle that you can. But that also means that if you play all of your great numbers initially, you're picking kind of the dregs later. And so you kind of have to think about it, but there are enough numbers in there that you're not too worried, that you're going to use up all of the best numbers. So that was one thing I really liked. The other cool thing is that there's always one painting left over at the end of the round, and that is the one that is going to become more popular for scoring. So you have a little control over, which color of painting might be best for you at the end of the game, but it also means you have to leave those behind instead of taking them. And so that was Art Society. The next one on the list is Bardwood Grove. In this game, players are all bards who are practicing their songs on this board. This one ended up being a little bit convoluted. I enjoyed it. You had two different kinds of turns in the game. One turn where you're just playing a couple of cards that will turn up your volume because you are preparing to sing a song, or possibly add some things to your song. But then and allow you to move around the board. But then at certain points, you've got this little dial that you're spinning. And once you've spun it 4 times, which doesn't mean 4 turns. Some of the cards you play will have you spin it 2 times or 1 time or 3 times. So, you could do this in a couple of turns. But once you've turned it 4 times around this certain mark, you have to sing your song. And so the cards that you've been collecting kind of come together to I can't remember the certain terms. It was, the melody and the loudness and various things. These are things that you can then spend on the different locations that are around you on the board. So those new locations can get you some new fans or some new cards in your deck that give you more of those things in your song. There are also places on the board where you can tame creatures, which will come into your deck at various points. There was a lot going on and almost too much. I kind of want to try it again because I did think it was super cute art. Of course, I love art, but maybe just a little too much. I don't know. I want to try it again. That was Bardwood Grove. Next up is City of Iron. Ryan Laukat is one of our favorite designers, and so we had to try this one out. It is an older game of his and one of the few that we haven't tried. In this game, you are building up your society. You are exploring distant lands and then trying to add buildings to those lands. You're doing this by collecting cards that represent various people who are helping you out in this task. And ultimately, you're trying to get as many of different resources as you can because those are going to score for you big at the end of the game. I enjoyed this. I could see some of the bones of Ancient World in it, but to be honest, I prefer Ancient World. And so while this was an enjoyable experience, it's probably not one that I'm going to bring into my collection. Although the next game is also a Ryan Laukat game called Creature Comforts, and this one is likely to make my shelf. In this game, you are bringing a caravan across these dangerous lands, and you are playing out a tableau of cards to help you do it. It is a dice action selection mechanism where, each round you roll some dice, and then you have places that you can play them. You have a board where you can play them all the time, but then you're going to start playing out cards that give you additional abilities, places to play your dice, or ways to beef up the actions that you're already taking. This one, the art, of course, is amazing. I really liked building up my little tableau. There isn't a lot of player interaction. You have a couple of boards where you're fighting over various things, but it's very minor player interaction. I'm okay with that, but it's a thing to be aware of. And I really enjoyed this. Reminded me a little bit of Fantastic Factories, but I felt like it had a bit more going on with the map that you're moving across and these zombies that you need to kill and your tableau that you're building out. So that was Creature Comforts. Next up was Dreadful Meadows. This was a Kickstarter that I looked at and contemplated and ended up not getting. I love the theme. It's very Halloween-y. You are building up these tiles in front of you that represent different candies that you are growing, crops of candies. How amazing is that? And then you can use those candies to buy things, but then you have to take actions to make the candies grow again. So I really liked kind of that flow of the game where you're placing out these little workers on your crops to make things grow. And then as you pull them back, they have special abilities. You're adding new tiles. You're trying to place them so that things are together. There's a little bit of like the King Domino kind of scoring where you want groups of things together, but then they have to also have a production thing in it. I can't remember what they called it, a little machine that you put in there. And the more machines you have, the bigger the multiplier. Anyway, there were a lot of things here. It was actually a bit more than I was expecting from the preview videos that I watched on Kickstarter. I regret a little bit not getting it, but it is still kind of light, but a very enjoyable experience. That was Dreadful Meadows. Next up was Era Medieval Age. This was a game that had a big toy factor. You are rolling dice in order to take various actions, but the big thing that you are doing is building up this town on a board with plastic pieces that you stick in. They have little plastic things that stick in the board, and you're trying to wall things up and trying to chain things together. As you place some of the buildings in, you get new dice, so you have more things that you can do. But the more dice you have, the more people you need to feed, so you have to make sure that you're getting food for that. And then you want to be getting other resources in order to build more things into your town, but then bad things can happen. I enjoyed this one. It's probably not one that needs to be on my game shelf. I would definitely play it again, and it was super fun at the end of the game to kind of see what you had actually built in front of you, which I think was the big draw for this one. And that was Era, the medieval age. Next was Gardlings. This is a little game that is a press your luck type game, bag building game, where each round you are pulling things out of your bag in order to build up this little tableau of tiles in front of you. You're doing this tile laying thing. They're like domino type pieces, but they have gems on their edge that you need to match up. And those gems that you match up become the thing that you use to buy new things to put into your bag. There is a mechanism where you can bust if you have too many of these gnomes that come out. But even if you bust, you get a pity pig to throw into your bag. It has a little bit of the feel of Quacks of Quedlinburg, mostly from the bag building and the chance of making yourself bust. But you're building out a tile thing in front of yourself each time, which is super fun. It plays really fast. I loved it. I'm going to actually be looking for this one. And that was Gardlings. All right, next up was Haunt the House. This was definitely a family weight game, but we love the games by Kids Table Board Game, and we wanted to give this one a try. In this one, you are trying to play out the right things to scare away these ghost hunters because they are invading our haunted house. It was really cute. You play out different rooms and then play out different dream pieces to them. I can't remember the names of things. And then you try to get the majority there and be the one to play the last thing to get it. I liked it. It was cute. Definitely family weight, probably too light for us, but it was fun to give it a try once, and that was Haunt the House. Another kind of lighter game was Jokkmokk, the Winter Market. We were kind of interested in this one because a few years ago we took a winter market tour in Europe, which was amazingly fun. This is a Swedish market where you are moving around a board, picking up cards in order to collect sets and do various things. We played with the base set, but there are a whole bunch of different cards that you can put in the game that will change it up over time. Very cute art, fun game, a little light for our tastes, but we enjoyed it. That's Jokkmokk, the Winter Market. Next up was King of Tokyo Duel. This is a 2-player implementation of King of Tokyo, and it's got a lot of the things that we love about King of Tokyo, you know, the chucking the dice and re-rolling to get just the right things. But in this game, there are a few ways to win. You know, you no longer have Tokyo. You're always basically punching your opponent. And if you get them down to 0 health, you win. But there is always also a board where you are tracking fame and something else that I can't remember. But if you move one of those markers all the way to the other side of the board, you'll win. Or if you get both of them in these spotlight areas, you will also win. So it adds some new ways to win the game. We had fun with it. King of Tokyo is no longer one of our favorites, sadly. It was one we took out a lot when we had more beginner players coming in and out of the house. But now we've moved on to things that are a little bit more Euro-y and a little less attacky, but it is a great implementation of King of Tokyo for 2 players, and that is King of Tokyo Duel. Next is Leviathan Wilds. This is another Kickstarter that I actually had no clue about. I had heard someone talk about it on a top 10 list somewhere, and so that's how it made it onto my to-play list. It is a cooperative game where players are moving around these leviathans, trying to break these crystals that are causing them harm. Each round, you are going to find out where an attack is going to happen or who it's going to happen to, which gives you the turn to try and mitigate that a little bit. And then your player is going to move around this Leviathan, jumping from thing to thing or trying to get all the way to the top and then breaking these crystals. I had a blast with this. We tried 2 of the characters. There are a bunch more characters, a bunch more classes that you can mix things up with. And so I'm actually looking this one up to see if I can get in on a late pledge, because I really enjoyed it that much. There is a campaign involved. I would happily play through that, and that is Leviathan Wilds. Next was Maple Valley. This is another game from Kids Table Board Games. It's kind of a follow-up to Creature Comforts, which we had tried a couple of years ago and found we enjoyed it, but it felt just a little bit long. But we also tried it at 11 o'clock at night, so maybe we would have enjoyed it a little bit better if it was earlier in the day. Maple Valley is a follow-up to this where you are prepping for a celebration that's going to happen, and you're sending your kids running around all over to pick up things, supplies, and other things that you'll need in order to have your celebration. I really liked this one. It was super cute. I found it more enjoyable than Creature Comforts, but it still has the amazing art of Creature Comforts, which is A+ because it is adorable. You're collecting various creatures who help you move around the forest and the mountains and the waters faster and give you special things as you do that. So we really liked this one. Definitely liked it more than Creature Comforts, although again, with the caveat that we might have liked that one better if it had been earlier in the night. And that is Maple Valley. Next up is Paris, le Cité de la Lumière, which is a 2-player game that has kind of this double-layered tile building that I've liked in other games. In the game, it's played in kind of 2 main rounds. The first round, players are playing out tiles onto this board. They're square tiles with little squares in them representing your own color and your opponent's color and a neutral color, which will be places that you can play buildings later in the game. Instead of playing out a tile, you can claim a building, and then during the second half of the game, you are playing out those buildings that you've collected and using the abilities on those various postcards. And so you can only cover your own color or the neutral color, and you're trying to make large areas that are illuminated by the lights and illuminating your buildings. And so I liked this game. It was, again, maybe a little bit simpler than a game that I'm generally looking for, and my spouse and I often at home don't play 2-player only games. We play some bigger, multiplayer games, but at 2 players that we really enjoy. So I don't know that this one will hit my shelf, but I did enjoy this. Paris, la Cité de la Lumière. Next was Raising Robots. This is a game where players are building a tableau, kind of wingspan style, where you've got robots that you're playing out into these rows in front of you. But each round you're only going to take certain actions that players have played out that they have said that they would like to play. And then if anyone has played out an action, everyone is able to take it as long as they have enough power in that action to actually take it. The various actions include, upgrading your board, playing out new robots, or activating a row of robots. And this is where kind of the wingspan comparison can come in. Ultimately, you're trying to get the most points by collecting resources and playing out these various robots. I found it super cute. I would love to play it again. I don't quite know if this is one I want to add to my collection, but I did really enjoy it, and that was Raising Robots. Next up was Rajas of the Ganges. This is a game we've wanted to try for a while. We enjoy, kind of the dice rolling and worker placement. We, of course, know about the scoring mechanism where you want your 2 streams to pass, and then that triggers the end game. It's kind of like Ark Nova, but of course long before Ark Nova came out. In the game, you are using your dice in order to build up tiles in front of yourself and get power in various things. I really enjoy this. You're actually placing out a worker and then spending dice in order to do those actions, but the color of the dice can matter, or the number of the die can matter. And it's really a game of managing how many dice you have and when you're going to get new dice versus using them for various actions or spending a whole bunch of them to get one thing that you want instead of spending, a lower value one for something you're not as interested in. I found it to be a really fun puzzle. And I think my spouse did as well. So it's definitely one we will look at again, and that's Rajas of the Ganges. Next up was Redwood. In this game, players are taking on the role of photographers moving around the forest trying to get the perfect shot. In the game, there is a physical aspect where you have a photographer on the board, and then at the beginning of the round, you are picking a movement template and a photography template. And you can't try them out on the board. You just have to eyeball them and hope that you've gotten the right movement to get to where you want to be. And then you put your camera on and hope that you are getting the animals and plants that you really wanted in the right places on your photo. I really liked this one. I liked the tactileness of it, where you have to think about, that visual spatial aspect, confidently grabbing a movement template and then trying it out on your turn and figuring out, oh, that was the wrong one. But that was a lot of fun. And then the second aspect of the camera and trying to get the perfect photo, I really enjoyed this one, and that was Redwood. Next up was Septima. This is a game where you are a witch trying to get a coven together, but it is in the time of course, the witch trials. So you are running around trying to create potions and get the ingredients you need for various potions, all the while healing people, but also helping some of your fellow witches who are on trial, where if you can get them off, get them off of the trial, get them a not guilty plea, they can come and be added to your coven. This had an interesting mechanism where you're not cooperating with your other players, but if you play the same you want to discuss a little bit, because if you play the same action, it can add more suspicion to the board, which is bad for those trials. But sometimes you get a really special something for playing the same card. You always get something extra for playing the same card as someone else. So there might be times where you want to do that. So I found that part of the game really interesting. It overstayed its welcome a little bit for us and kind of felt a little samey after a while, but I wonder if with more players, it would add a little more variety, or if we had played the full game, we played kind of the beginner game that they suggest. If we played the full game, we might have enjoyed it a little bit more. But that was Septima. Next up was Sky Team. This is a cooperative game for 2 players where you are flying a plane, trying to land it without talking to your co-pilot, which seems like a bad model for how to fly a plane, but it is a fun model for a game. You are rolling dice and keeping them secret from each other, and the pilot and the co-pilot have spots that are different from each other where they can play stuff, and then there are a few places where they are the same. Each round you have to play dice in this in one spot that defines the angle of the plane, and of course you want to try and keep it as flat as you can, at least by the time you're landing. And so there is that element there where you're trying to make sure that you and your partner are kind of in sync and playing the right things to keep the plane flat. There were a lot of touches. We played through this about 3 times because we had to give it a go. We lost the first time. We won the second one. Can't remember if we won the third, but we tried a different city and had a lot of fun with it. That was Sky Team. Next up was Spectacular. This is a drafting game where you are drafting tiles and dice in order to fill up a park, an animal park in front of you. Each player has their own park that they are playing. You are trying to collect different animals that have different habitats. You want to get those habitats together. You're trying to build up these towers that you can surround with animals. And then you also want breeding pairs in some of those in those habitats in order to score them, because without a breeding pair, you score nothing for that type of habitat. This one was fun. I liked the open drafting where you kind of knew what was available. You knew that your tiles were all going to come out. You have a private pool, but then you have this board that moves around and you get to take one thing off of there each round. So you kind of know what might come back to you and you can plan ahead for that. But ultimately, this didn't quite spark anything with me, even though it is one of my favorite themes in a game, animal habitats. So I don't know if we're going to be investigating this one again, and that was Spectacular. Next was Tiletum. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. This is a game that has a dice action selection where each round you are rolling a set of dice and placing them out. And then each turn you're picking one of those dice. The color of the die tells you what resource you're going to get, and then the number on the die tells you what action you can do. Ultimately, you're moving around this board, putting influence on it, building up cathedrals. You have an architect who's running around there. You also have houses that you're filling in front of yourself that can help boost up some of those actions. About halfway through this game, I kind of shut down. I don't know if it's that at 2-player this just does not play well, because we found out of the 4 rounds, there was one action that showed up only once in the entire game. And it was the one action that I had beefed up with, by housing people who could help beef up that action. And it just really was not an enjoyable experience for me. It's based on 1 play. I would definitely try it again. I think I would do it at more players just to increase the odds that those actions are going to show up more often. But not my best experience of the retreat, and that was Tiletum. Next up, we also tried Too Many Bones. This is one I've heard a lot about as kind of a role-playing game-esque, but in a box where you don't have to have a game master, but you have a deck of cards that walk you through different scenarios, and you're building up your character and then putting them out and battling things each round. I really enjoyed this one. We played through the first scenario of the first game. So I would need to kind of get into it a little bit more, and we probably did a few things wrong. But honestly, I would love to do a full campaign of this game. I had enough fun. I liked the battling. I liked working together. I liked building up my character. I liked the little scenarios they were talking about. All of this came together to be a super fun game. Kind of long, which might be a problem. We're usually in the 1.5 to 2 hour type games. This was 3 to 4 hours, I think, just for the one scenario, but it was still a lot of fun, and I would definitely try it again. That was Too Many Bones. Next up was Unsettled, which is a sci-fi kind of cooperative exploration type game where players have landed on a planet and they have a mission that they need to accomplish. There are a couple of different planets in the game that you're going to be looking at. We did one scenario in this, and it was a lot more fun than I was expecting. This was one that my spouse had heard of and was interested in trying. I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, but when we got into it, I really enjoyed it. Trying to figure out the puzzle of when to move around, how to accomplish the goal without killing ourselves, which things to try and beef up, what technologies could we get and what things could we use to help ourselves. And ultimately we ended up winning, which was a lot of fun. I think we would have had fun either way, but that was Unsettled. Next was the Vale of Eternity. This was a drafting game where you are drafting these fantastical creatures and then trying to play them out in front of you in order to chain together various actions. One of the cool things about this game is that you are limited to having 4 stones, which are the things that you pay for things with. Not 4 value stones, but 4 total stones. So you might have 2 6s, a 1, and a 3, or you might have all 4 1s, and you need to figure out how to chain things together in order to get rid of some of them and bring in higher value ones that let you, pay for higher value cards, that sort of thing. I ended up really enjoying this one. I had never heard of it before, but my spouse wanted to play it, and I did enjoy it. We love drafting. I liked that addition of, the limit in how many pieces of money you can have, not just value, but pieces. And so that was a lot of fun for us to play. That was the Vale of Eternity. Next up was Windmill Valley. This is a game where you are doing some action selection with a gear in front of you, and what you're trying to do is put out these windmills on a board, collect flowers, trade them in for various things, and just chain together various actions every turn if you possibly can. This one was a lot of fun. This one had a lot of buzz, of course. It's a fairly new release, and we really enjoyed it. I actually, this is one I think we will probably end up getting because I loved the little gear action. You can upgrade your gears so you get different actions, but you have to be careful what actions you cover over when you do that, because then suddenly an action can become unavailable. And so that was a lot of fun. I liked the puzzle of this game. It was a pretty game. The theme, maybe not 100% there, but still a lot of fun to play. And that was Windmill Valley. And rounding out the list is World Wonders. This is a polyomino placement game where you are building up this society, I guess, in front of you and trying to set yourself up in order to place out these wonderful world wonders. You know, the Colosseum or the Sphinx or the Great Wall of China, you know, but you need to set up your board in a way that you satisfy the needs of that wonder, and then you can play it into your board. One of the cool mechanisms about this is it's played in rounds, and each round you have so many action points that you can spend. I think it's called money, but it's basically action points. And each, you know, different size of tile is going to cost you a different amount. And, you know, you can also buy some roads that you'll need in order to connect your buildings together. But the wonders don't have a fixed cost. They just cost whatever you have left. So you have to be sure that you are done for the round when you place that wonder. And maybe you want to play it early because you know someone else is going for the exact same thing, and it's worth it to you to put that out and have no other actions for the round. But more often than not, you are probably going to push yourself at least one more turn because there's one more thing you can do. He's not going to get there in time. And sometimes that might just bite you a little bit. And so we had a fun with this one. That is World Wonders. So there you have it, 27 new to us games. I don't know how well I did on time, probably not great. This is probably one of my longer videos, but I don't care. I had a lot of fun at the retreat. I had a lot of fun rethinking through these games. Let me know in the comments if you've tried any of these games. Are any of these on your favorites list? Or maybe you want to try one of them, you know? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences with these games. Otherwise, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel so you know when my new videos come out. And in the meantime, you can follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky as MaplePhD, and I have a blog at maplephd.com. Otherwise, I will see you next time.